Hello and welcome back to Superliminal, and as always, thank you ever so much for tuning in to the latest episode. On today's show, I have Lauda Leon. Lauda is a Meta-KI-QINETICS psychic counselor, forensic anomalous profiler, spirit seer and practitioner of spirit energetics in her operating capacity as a quantum energy shifter. Lauder works as a facilitator towards personal healing, utilizing both innate and learned abilities towards excavation of soul memories, created timelines, and multi-dimensional realms of existence. I mean, that alone is just incredible. And the primary focus of her work and her service is in merging the complex dynamics of psychology, emotions, mind, body and spirit toward heightened comprehension of our current paradigm upon all its levels and layers. And that is so important because I first came across Lauder on Christian Van Wyck's excellent 4-part documentary on iconic.com, which I highly recommend you go and check out. Iconic, ICKONIC.com, and subscribe because there's so much wonderful stuff on there if you're interested in the nature of reality and how this crazy world really works. So yeah, I came across Lauder on Christian's documentary called The Great Unknown, and I was really struck with not just what she was saying, but the vibration of what she was saying, the truth of it, because she can remember everything. She remembers coming in for the birth process. There's such an incredible story about how she was actually born into her consciousness actually came into a stillborn baby, which she explains in the conversation, which is so profound. And then I thought she'd only had three, I say only, had three near-death experiences, but it turns out it's 6 or maybe even 7. She can remember every single one. And what's important about this is that even when we leave our bodies, the matrix still exists beyond our physical reality. And she does such a good job of explaining how that is and why. And it's fascinating. I mean, I've always thought that there's something not right with reincarnating hundreds of thousands of times. And then as I've dived into the work over this last 2-3 years or so from brilliant researchers and experiences and people with phenomenal psychic abilities like Lauder, I've come to realize that there was a reincarnation trap in place. Some people are saying that it's no longer there, but nonetheless, she does a great job of explaining her perception of this reality and what exists beyond that, which if you're in the process of going back into unity and reconnecting with your heart and soul and the truth of what is, back into the natural way of life and the natural way of love, which was the expression I was looking for, then this is the conversation for you. So as always, please do subscribe to the channel. It helps get the conversation out to other fabulous people just like you who would benefit from hearing it. Please do like, comment and share as well. And that's it for now. I will see you in a second. Hello and welcome back once again to Superliminal. You'll notice that I'm in slightly different surroundings this time because I'm actually at home instead of in the studio because it's sort of later in the evening here in the UK. But I had to stay up because my guest today is the fascinating Lauda Leon. Now, I came across her, as I've mentioned in more detail in the intro video, watching the wonderful 4-part documentary, if I remember rightly, The Great Unknown, that the wonderful filmmaker Christian Van Wyck produced. And she shared some clips of Lauder on there from some YouTube interviews that she did. And I just loved her energy and I loved what she shared. And I think most importantly, I really resonated with her view on reincarnation in particular. And what happened. And off camera, we already had some great chats off camera. So I thought we better hit the record button and start recording. So Lauda, thank you ever so much for coming on Superliminal. And it's really an honor to have you here.
It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. So why don't we start? Obviously, we're like from the beginning, but I mean, like
Ah!
I, I said off camera, like it's like you've had three near-death experiences, and turns out I'd only got 50% of it. It's actually about six. But yeah, take us from the beginning when you somehow got duped into coming back into this world, and then your first NDE, your first near-death experience, and
Yeah.
what that how that unfolded, but also what it began to show you about the nature of this reality
Mm.
that we're in.
So my memory is that I didn't get duped. It's that I was called in and asked if I wanted to come in to do this. And it was with 7 other people who each were from unique universes. And given the situation, it was kind of what was known as a last call,
Hmm.
considering everything that was about to go down, right? Because this is finishing. This inverse, counterfeit, facsimile reality, simulacrum, is going down. So I came in willingly to do this, even though I had a lot of um, reservations, and I considered coming in as an impossible mission given the situation. But and we all did actually, but we came in anyway because of the supernatural metaphysical quality that we are. So given the mission impossible, we're going on the metaphysical side of things, of everything that primes and angelics and celestials are. And with that, I was like, somehow, even though it's mission impossible, it's going to work, right? So that's how I came in. Um, so I didn't really have the memory of a lot of these incarnations, but I had the memory of how this, and also not just the memory, but I was told the situation here, and I was told to stay awake. And that was really imprinted in my brain. Stay awake, and that doesn't mean fall asleep. Don't be afraid to fall asleep. That's a consciousness thing. So yeah, but it was terrifying. I wasn't. I was actually very, very worried about this, and I knew that.
Before you
Yeah.
came in, yeah.
hmm So much so that I was stalling. And because I was stalling, because I had questions, and I was like, I don't know, this seems like a mission impossible. This is like, what are the parameters? Where's the divine aid when we need it? Like all these things. And at that time, the body was already being born. And I was up where I was basically still talking.
Oh, I see. Because I recall from as we said off camera when I was reading Dr. Michael
hmm
Newton's books
hmm
on the reincarnation process. Generally, most souls tend to bond with the human vehicle they're going to be with anything from sort of 3 to 6, 7 months, because the general consensus was it takes that amount of time to form a symbiotic relation between
Yep.
the body's consciousness and our actual soul
hmm
consciousness as well. But
That
you
didn't happen
hadn't
to
come
me.
in even before your human vehicle had been born.
That's correct.
Wow.
I did not go into the body until after it was born, but because I was stalling, the body was born and it was stillbirthed. So I came in to a stillborn body. So it was dead. The body was dead, and when I was, yeah, I had help to go into the body really quickly and powerfully. And the power of how I entered the body is what essentially resuscitated it in shock. And that was my first memory of that body, but they don't normally do it like that. That's yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I
literally.
was not in the vehicle at all until then.
Can you remember what that felt like to then have to
100%.
that to then have to get to know the consciousness of your human body and then to be able to then come together as one? I mean,
Yep.
that's a hell of a steep learning curve, literally, given
Yep.
that you had to do it instantaneously.
I have absolute memory of it because it was absolutely
Wow.
terrible. It, it it was painful. The density here was painful.
Yeah.
It felt like you were being compressed so much that it's a state of being that is a real shock. And it was that density that I had a major problem with. So when I entered the body, I was fully conscious. And I was conscious with my consciousness. So even though I was in the body of a baby, I was still me, thinking like me. But I couldn't express anything. So it was really it took a long time for me to be able to inhabit the body where it wasn't arduous and hard and difficult to deal with the lack of movement, the lack of expression. It felt like a blob. It felt like I was pushed into a blob.
Mm.
And yeah, so the whole experience was actually really awful. And I, yeah, I ended up having a problem with the physicality, period. I couldn't eat food. My body rejected, essentially, my body rejected this reality. So I couldn't even eat food. And I had a very weird episode that at 6 months, I died again. And then they revived me, but I was in a coma for quite a while. And it was a strange kind of a coma. They ended up having to inject something in my brain. And they said, like, this is either going to kill her, but if she survives it, she'll end up being, mentally challenged,
Yeah.
right? And but I did survive it, so they injected me, and I came out of it screaming, and I was fully intact. Like they couldn't understand it, so it didn't have any effects on me. And so that's there's two times right there, essentially.
And you're 6 months old at this point.
And I'm 6 months old,
Wow.
and during that, I recall continually being shown things that were to come, continually being shown like the series of events, the paradigm, like it was almost like it just continued, right? I was being shown what I needed to retain here so it wouldn't get lost. So yeah, that is the beginning of me, right? And then just getting used to the body so that I could eventually eat and function.
Mm.
But I've always had a very difficult time with this reality, and I've always had so the three-dimensional space with this density is one of the most uncomfortable. And so all the angelics and primes and celestials remember this. This is like not the correct physics for us.
Mm.
Nothing here is the correct physics. Um, and innately, you know it, you feel it. There is no comfort in your body, not really. Um, do we ever get to the point where we enjoy being in the body here in this particular reality and realm? No, I don't really think we do. I think it's always like a work in progress, right? So, yeah, that's how it started. But it was for the mission, it was coming in to do the job. And the not falling asleep pertained to the nature of the prison here, the war on consciousness.
Mm.
and it was imprinted in me, right? That this is vital to retain your consciousness here because of the nature of this trap. And yes, they're going to tell you that karma is real. They're going to put karmic lords there. There's a pantheon of councils designed to dupe everybody. But, it's interesting because so often souls would just say, okay, like, I believe it, I'll come back. Yes, I'm learning. But what happens if you say no? Right? What happens when the karmic lords say, oh, well, you weren't able to learn this, but if you go back and you learn this, you're just going to evolve and it's going to be that much better. And you say no. They can't force you. And I think that level of consciousness is where we're at, right? Now people are getting it. Now they know, because karma is a part of the machine.
Yeah.
This is how they've been able to get away with this. So it's a magnificent lie. And the other aspect of this is if enough of you get too conscious so that your consciousness is able to collapse this, at that point we'll do a reset. So we've seen many resets. And now we're at a time when, I don't think the reset's going to work. And this is coming down. So we do have the help, because at this point inside this inverted facsimile copy reality, the simulacrum, it's actually toppling the universes. So what's happening here is affecting all the other universes to the point where it can't be allowed to carry on. It can't be allowed to go on, right? So that's a little bit of background to how I got in here.
Yeah, wow, that is incredible. But I love the fact that you're able to hang on to, or, well, not hang on to, but actually consciously remember exactly why you're here and what the mission is, because there are so many people that either have a complete memory wipe when they arrive, or some young children will remember up until the ages of anywhere in between 3 to about 7 or 8, but then it's
Yeah.
completely gone after that. And very, very few people like you actually remember the whole thing. But the people that I've heard who do remember are generally those who have come with a very, very specific mission to help get rid of all this nonsense, and for us to transcend it. Because you mentioned there about the karma side of it, and we have to come back to repay our karma and experience things on the other side. We were saying before we started that a few years ago I'd started reading Michael Newton's excellent books. I think it was Journey of Souls, something else of Souls. He wrote about four or five books, didn't he? And I remember at the time what a freeing effect that had on me, because I was like, oh, death is not the end. I kind of always felt it deep down inside, but could never find a way to really connect with it. And reading those really brought it all into my conscious awareness. But simultaneously, it actually raised just as many questions as it answered, because one of the things that Michael found in his research, which he did from I think it was the 50s up until the 80s or 90s, something like 60s to the 90s, something like that. He spent about 30, 40 years doing it. One of the things he found was that on average, most souls have had something like in between 30 to 100,000 reincarnations on this planet to learn lessons. And I'm like, that's a hell of a lot of detention. Like, how many lessons do you need to come back and learn? And why do you even need to have to come back to do that? Why couldn't you do that within a lifetime as well. And that really got me on the path of wondering about the trap side
Hmm.
of the reincarnation process. And it's fascinating. You shared some things there that I'd love to explore further in the conversation about it being a facsimile or a
Hmm.
fake copy. But you experienced that more directly, didn't you? When I think was it when you were about 13 and you had a major
Oh
injury
yes.
then?
Oh yes, yes, yes. I drowned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. That. Wow. That was that was a crazy experience because I was in the Mediterranean Sea and I didn't realize that there had been warnings on the beach because it was nighttime that the currents were really bad, and I
Right.
was pulled, and I kept being pulled. So one current would pull me, the undertow, and take me, and another undertow would take me, and this just, you know, brought me really far into the ocean, and I drowned. And it was really, it was really phenomenal and hard to believe. But the only reason why I got rescued was because of two dolphins who brought me back in. That's the only reason. And when they brought me back into shore, the people that were on the beach, they were making a ruckus and they realized there was a dead body like that they had been carrying in, which was me. And then I was resuscitated, um, but not right away. It was like I wasn't coming back. So,
Mm.
it was taking a while. But when I had that experience, I went into what I call the deep. So when I had that experience, as I was having that experience, I wondered, where's the light?
Mm.
Like, why am I not seeing the light? And, you know,
So you
ancestors.
you mean that the thing that people generally describe
Yeah, right?
is it I forgot how you pronounce it. Is it the Haralite or the Harotube? Is
Yeah,
basically like
right.
a corkscrew of
Yes.
light, and then you're met by your grandma that
Yep,
passed away when you were two, or if you're religious, like Jesus, Buddha, Allah, or whoever, or
exactly.
some close relatives, and you didn't have any of that
No,
in that
and I
experience.
actually was wondering if something was wrong. Like, I'm
Wow.
like, oh my God, like that's not happening. Why am I not seeing that? I'm just going into this darkness, this place that has nothing in it. It's just what I call the deep because it wasn't scary. It was very peaceful, but there was nothing there, right? And I was, the programming tells you you're going to see the light, you're going to see the tunnel, you're going to meet the people, and what is going on? Just had all those questions running through my mind. And then when I realized I was in the deep, I suspended everything. I just let go of everything. And I was like,
Mm.
ah, I get it. I'm not in it anymore. Like I'm not in it. So nothing can attach. Nothing of this simulacrum can attach to me in the deep. There's nothing that my mind is playing in reality and that it can use.
Yeah.
So I was really quite content and I thought, well, okay, I'll just stay here. This is great.
Is it what do you feel that's what most people say is the void? What you mentioned as the deep.
I mean, I've been to the void in my experience and that wasn't good. And the void for me is attached to the simulacrum because the simulacrum has all of the dimensions in it. Okay.
Mm.
So you think you're getting out, but you're still here, right? It's not just the 3D. It's like it has all the dimensions trapped within this.
So
So
basically, the matrix isn't just here on planet Earth. It extends
yeah,
way beyond into
yeah,
the astral realm, and into
yes,
all these realms beyond, into this void that
yep.
people talk about.
Hmm.
Wow.
So when I went into the void, it was a very different experience, and it was it was scary. Okay, and that so I to me there the deep is our primordial state that to me feels like before creation gets created, right?
Yeah.
This is like the point of inception if that's what you want. And that is a beautiful space to be in. It's very peaceful, but the void is almost like probably the counterfeit copy of the deep,
Yeah.
but it's in here, and that felt very, very terrible to me. Like that felt like a trap. So there's a distinction for me. Now, somebody else's experience of the deep, they might just call it the void. I don't know. But to me, those two are very different because the void, you feel the nothingness in there. You feel that it isn't, it's it's like your nightmare in the subconscious where they place you in an area where there's nothing but you're terrified. Whereas the deep, it's like the primordial womb experience. Yes, there's nothing there, but you know it's the point of inception. You know that out of that you can birth
Yeah.
creation, right?
Yeah.
Like that it's completely different.
Almost like you're everything and you're nothing, you're
Right,
everywhere and you're
right,
nowhere.
right.
You're all it is and you're nothing. It's
Exactly.
I've heard it
Yeah.
described like that. But as you say, it's of this beautiful, peaceful awareness at the
The
same time.
most peace I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
So when I was in that space, I started understanding the point of creation. I started thinking, oh well, oh, if I want to, I can create, something in here. And I just had all these thoughts about that while I was in the deep that I understood that that's where what did I want to experience, right? What
Yeah.
kind of reality did I want to experience? But I was content to be in the deep. And at that point is when I was magnetized.
As in pull back.
Yeah.
Oh, just when you thought you had a one-way ticket.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Suddenly, the best way I can describe it is that there was this huge magnetic pull that was sucking me back in.
Wow.
Hmm.
Who or what do you think that magnetic pull was?
Well, the direction of the magnetic pull was this reality.
This one we're in
Yeah.
now. Okay.
And so whatever the logi, force, eon, however you want to call it, it felt like it was attached to this reality, and it
Yeah.
was pulling me. Literally, I couldn't get myself out of the magnetic pull.
And presumably that was because your physical body was coming back to life, I imagine.
Yeah, they were
Okay. Because you've
resuscitating
been
me.
resuscitated. Okay. Yeah.
And then I was sucked back in.
Was it instantaneous or was it just a slow thing
No,
or
it felt like it took a while. Like it felt like
okay.
I was resisting it,
Yeah.
right? But the magnetic pull was so strong, and I'm resisting and resisting and resisting, and I'm trying to pull back the other way. And I'm being dragged.
Yeah.
And then before I knew it, I was back in the body.
Thoroughly disappointed.
A- Absolutely disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to come back. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was very content there. It was beautiful. I understood, like, I mean, I was playing with the idea and the thoughts. Well, what do I want to create now? What do I want to experience? I understood that's where I was. That, and I wasn't thinking about this realm at all.
Yeah.
And even though I'd come in, I said, yes, I'll come in to do this, like many of us do, right? Yes, we will come in. And all of us together function as one doing the same job, right? Even though I knew that, I was like really happy to have an out,
Yeah.
right?
So you didn't have any when you were in that space, you didn't, I guess you probably didn't have any kind of insight or vision into your story here, because as far as you were concerned, when you were in that space, you just weren't going to come back.
I wasn't going to, no.
Yeah.
I had no intention.
Yeah.
Positively, absolutely. And I was thinking about what I agreed to come in, and I was like, oh, it's all right. I can let it go. I mean, this realm terrifies me. This realm and the nature of what's happening here is it in consciousness, it's very alarming, right? So
Mm.
in my mind, I was like, I guess it's meant to be that, I'm out and that's okay. I'm good with it. I know they've got other people. I'm good. Ready to go, you know? And
Yeah.
nope.
So you're back. You don't want to be back, but like, okay, I'm here reluctantly. Tell us
hmm
what happened next in the journey for you.
So the next thing that happened was I drowned again. Yep. And this time it was in a swimming pool.
How long after was that?
It was the same year.
Oh, really?
hmm
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. I was swimming. It was a public swimming pool with a bunch of kids there and like the lifeguards. And the strangest thing was, I was on the diving board and I was trying to do a flip and I smashed my head against the diving board and I was unconscious and I was at the bottom of the pool. But but the weird thing was nobody saw it.
Really?
So nobody realized I was like at the bottom of the pool. Nobody realized it. Nobody. And so I drowned. And in that experience, I just remember like feeling that no, I wasn't getting pulled into the deep. I wasn't getting any of that. It it almost felt like the words were, "You're okay." Like you're not going to stay dead. You're okay. You're coming back. And I was weirded out because I wanted to go back to the deep. I wanted to have that
Mm.
experience, but it was just almost like an auditory being told, you're going to be okay. You're coming back. And then
Where did you feel you were then, Lauda, when you were hearing that? Because your body's literally dead.
I
So
was,
where do you
yeah,
where do you feel your awareness was when you were experiencing
like
that?
the 4D,
Okay.
right? Because I wasn't looking at my body from the outside. Like I wasn't hovering above the pool or
Hmm.
looking down or anything. I was like beyond that. And to me it felt more like the next level from here,
Yeah.
that next space, right?
The astral realm, would you
Which would
say?
be the astral. Yeah, that's what
Okay.
it felt like to me. Yeah. And then they realized, there was somebody at the bottom of the pool and the lifeguard jumped in, grabbed me. I was dead and I had to be resuscitated again. And I came back. Okay, wow. Here we go, right? Um and then okay, the next time. Um the one time I was getting some work done with acupuncture. This is so bizarre. I was getting work done acupuncture, and in this area right here, he put the needles in, and I flatlined, like I died on the table.
Through
And
acupuncture. Wow.
yep, I'm not saying that this is the kind of thing that happens often, but I think my body's a bit rigged differently. Right? Like if you think of our bodies as being portals and having all these connections to other dimensions and realms, right?
Mm.
If you're pressing certain things, you may just open that up, right? And I think
Yeah,
that's kind of what
true.
happened. And I flatlined and I died on his table. And in that experience, I was pulled into the rings of the earth. So the best I can describe it is that there are rings around this realm,
Very
and
much like Saturn.
and they're frequency rings, and they have a sound.
Right.
So they emit a frequency, and I was pulled into those rings. And in those rings, I was hearing the bell. And it's a sound of this like most beautiful bell sound ever, and it just keeps echoing and
Mm.
echoing. And the weird thing was I couldn't get out of that. So I was kind of stuck there, and I thought I was going to be stuck there forever, right?
Mm.
And at that time and it was actually a doctor who was doing the acupuncture. He was also a naturopath, and he was trying to revive me. And poor man like was freaking out and thinking, oh my God, I've killed her, right? And so he's trying to resuscitate me, revive me, and I wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
But I wasn't able to leave that sphere, that I was in it, and it was infinity. The sound of the bell around this realm is infinite. It was infinity. So it could just keep going and going and going. And that's where I was. And I had the consciousness that I was listening to the one sound frequency of this existence, and then you could hop into another area and hear that frequency. So you're basically listening to the music of the universe.
Mm.
And it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And I don't know why I had that experience. I have no idea. At that point, he did manage to revive me, and I got pulled back in. And, there I was, survived. So that taught me a lot about frequency, right?
Yeah.
It taught me that, like, as above, so below, right? The macro and the micro are like one and the same. And somehow I just knew that what I was hearing was the macro aspect, right? The outer aspect of us, that we make these frequencies too.
Yeah.
So
That's incredible. I've never heard anyone describe that before. That's fascinating.
yeah, so existence is like, so what we carry as prime celestial beings, what we carry are all the sounds, are all the frequencies that creation is made from.
Yeah.
We actually carry that. And when I had that experience, unknowingly, I was shown that that's the outer aspect of the inner. That
Yeah.
everything out there is a reflection, a creation of what we are and what is in us. So it just changed the way I understood creation, right? It changed the way I understood about physical manifestation in a body and whatever and what that is. Because now I understood ultimately everything is a frequency, and everything that we think of as a physical manifestation is actually a frequency. Whether it's
Yeah.
sped up or slowed down determines the level of physical experience you have with
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that
I
was
was, yeah, I was speaking to a good friend this morning, and that was actually a part of the conversation we were having about that. Effectively, there is no such thing as solid matter. It's just
none.
simply the frequency of existence is slowed down so much
Yep.
that it then gives a visual
Yes.
appearance of solidity. But
Yep.
actually, it's just a measure of it is just a measure or a condensing of
Right.
frequency to give that appearance. I love that you've shared that from that experience. So when you came back with that awareness that you'd remembered, how did that then affect or shift your experience of what it means to be in this 3D world?
It just I I've had experience in the past without understanding.
Yeah.
Okay. So I had experiences that were just crazy, but I just had no idea what I was dealing with. I was just um like a casualty of it. Let's just say that,
Mm.
right? So when I was younger, I had experiences where everything my atoms sped up to such a high velocity that everything outside of it slowed right down. And so I'm perceiving reality differently because everything is almost frozen, but I'm sped up like crazy. And in that state of being sped up, I could see through everything.
Wow.
Okay. And I had experiences where I had put my arms through matter in front of people
Yeah.
while I was in that state. Because while I'm in that state, I'm not realizing people are looking at me and witnessing it from their side. I'm just experiencing something I can't understand, and I'm just, well, I can see through it, so I'm going to put my arm through it. So I would put my arm through it, and I'd be like, oh, my arm's through it. But I'm still seeing through matter. And then I was like, well, I'll just put my body through it. But at that time, it was being witnessed because it was recess time. And all the
Yeah.
kids are playing outside, and the teachers are, you know, there to um, look after the kids, and they witnessed it. But they witnessed solid matter, and they witnessed me going into solid matter. But I had no reference of I was a casualty, right? This is an experience I can't control. I don't know how it's happening, and I don't know what is igniting it. So I don't understand the context here, what's happening. But when I had the experience of the frequencies, I understood. So all of these other experiences that I've had, I now started understanding what they were. So, we in the 3D reality, like I say, the density that we experience here that has birthed matter the way we experience it, like a solid form, is because it's so slowed down.
Yeah.
And that is what is giving the state of matter to how we experience reality, right? And unbeknownst to me, for whatever reason, my atoms were going the opposite direction of this density. So it was super speeding up, and I would have these weird experiences, including bilocating, right? I bilocated in front of people more than once when I was young. Again, I had no idea what was happening.
Mm.
I didn't understand what caused it. But when I had the experience, when I died and I was pulled into these frequencies, these sounds, and I understood it was giving birth to that level of reality, it made me understand more.
Yeah. You've had such a fascinating journey through this life, Lauda. Given those experiences that you've had, how does that? I have two questions. It draws out two questions really. Firstly, how does that connect with what your mission was or what your purpose was in terms of coming into this life? You said right at the start of the conversation, you didn't really want to come here. I feel the same about my own existence
Mm-hmm.
because,
Yeah.
as I said before we hit the record button, I've always and still do feel this very strong sense of what am I doing here? This planet's beautiful in so many ways, but I've never truly felt at home here ever.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
From the tiniest age, and I've never understood why until very recently. And I now have a sense that the reason was because I came here with something to do, as many of us who have these kind of conversations do. That's not doesn't mean that we're better or worse than anybody else. It's just we remember these things. But bringing this back to you, what those experiences, how have they tied into what your journey, what your mission was in this life, and actually, what was that mission?
Okay, good question. The nature of the mission for for many of us, has to do with, number one, affecting consciousness, bringing in the remembrance so that the primes and the celestials that are waiting, they recognize those frequencies when they hear them. And then they get their memory, they understand what's going on. It's like a domino effect. The consciousness stream changes, and we all collectively bring this down, right? So part of it has to do with being an instrument to bring in those activations, those memories, the information that has been lost, right? And all of us are doing it in our ways, right? And some of us are doing it through teaching. Some of us are doing it through all manner of things, writing books. All of us are actually doing the same mission, if you will.
Yeah.
And, you know, the thing about primes, angelic celestials, is that if you get enough, they can change the fabric of reality. That the power within us is unlimited, right? The nature of the simulacrum is to erase memory. That is why they hack your DNA. If they hack your DNA, they've hacked your consciousness. They've hacked your ability to retain the information, to remember. So that's why it's not just a frequency war, a consciousness war, it's a war against your DNA. And that's why they're poisoning everybody the way they are, right?
Yeah.
And augmenting. And this is, all of everything from chemtrails to how they're poisoning the food to what they're putting in the bodies to 5G towers, 7, 10 God G towers, right? Small g,
Yeah.
is to hack your DNA. All right. And through that, it's going to impair you, devolve you consciously. So part of our job and the mission is to bring in that memory. And by doing that, you're actually reversing the damage in the DNA and, activating the parts that have been made dormant. And together, we all are bringing it down, right? We're all, I like to say we're like the virus in the matrix.
Hmm.
And, I do believe that collectively, many of us are what is creating glitches in the system. So, you amplify that with our consciousness and our evolved consciousness that is exceeding the motherboard here, then yeah, this is us destroying it.
Mm.
And this is us deactivating the low guy in charge of the simulacrum.
Yeah.
We are exceeding its level of domain.
Yeah. Because it can only, in some respects, the low vibrational, but still nonetheless very powerful entities behind this are terrified of us awakening to who and what we truly are, which is why all the nonsense that you've just described is why this reality has been filled with it. So one thing that I would love you to share from your perspective, Lauder, is what is, in your words, the simulacrum, the simulation, the matrix, whatever people want to call it? How would you describe it?
Well, I would describe it as originally it being an entity that was miscarried, and it's dead. That's why this reality is based on death. It's not a living reality; it's a dead reality, and it's based on the logi consciousness of the dead thing that couldn't stay dead because it came from prime creator mother. Okay. Prime creation energy can't die. So even though the miscarriage happened, if you will, that creature couldn't die. But it was dead. So this is a state of uncreation. This is the antithesis of creation. And so it created a reality that was a facsimile copy of the original to fool everybody. Now it could only create through the antithesis of creation. It could only create the opposite of that, which is the antiverse. And that's what it did. Although it mimicked, it facsimiled the original copy to seduce.
Yeah.
And then it drew in the people, the celestials, the angelics, the primes. Here they are. Once they were in lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it looked like the original originally, so you couldn't tell. But once everybody was in, it was locked down. Then I believe there was a rebellion that happened, because the souls that came in are the celestials, are the primes, are the angelics. And then you've got like the war in heaven. You've got what they call the war in heaven. All these heavens are a part of this reality, right? They're a part of the inverse. This low guy, what this dead low guy is, that couldn't die because it was essentially still a creation of the mother, right? Even though she miscarried it, that low guy imprinted itself onto the simulacrum, and it uses AI, right? This is what has been using AI from the very beginning, because this is an AI reality. The simulacrum is a machine, if you will, and the aeons are a part of that mechanical function, right? It's machine. This low guy imprinted itself on everything here. So when it imprinted its psyche, the underworld, it imprinted abandonment, rejection, rage, fear. It imprinted everything that everybody here suffers from. So what everyone fears here, what everybody suffers here with, like the fear of abandonment, the fear of rejection, the fear of not being loved, all these things are actually from the mind of that original low guy. And because this uncreated state reality is its creation, that's why the imprint is here. It imprinted itself. That's the virus, right? That's the parasitic virus. And it imprints on the psyche. And that's where, all of these fears reside. Essentially, this is the manifestation of the subconscious. This is the manifestation of the underworld, of its psyche.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's what I've heard a lot of the indigenous American tribes in North America call Wetiko, which is basically the mind virus.
Right, the mind virus.
Would that be correct?
Yep. Yeah, I have not read the book, but I know the premise.
Yeah.
And yes, I would say that that's what he's talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
So
fascinating.
the invasion is in the psyche, right?
Yeah. Because it is. You're absolutely right. I mean, I feel it here so powerfully when you say that it is absolutely a war on consciousness, but simultaneously, because so many of us are remembering who and what we truly are, then the days of the entrapment within that are very, very, very much numbered, which is a relief. Because I keep saying to my partner and all my friends, it's like, this is my last lap in this frequency. I'm done. When this body stops decoding this environment, and I'm out of here. Very much like you described your NDE from years ago, where you were literally just shot straight out, past all the white light, past all the pretend relatives, which is just basically a scan of your
Yeah.
mind to see who you want to see,
Yeah.
and trick you into going back. Yeah, I'm straight out into that beautiful space of everything and nothing and all that is. But it's really great that although it looks like at the moment that the world is imploding in terms of the control mechanism that's going on, I very much see and feel that as I heard someone explain it like this a year or two ago, and I thought that is such a fabulous expression. But basically, it's the final thrashings of a dying consciousness
Absolutely.
trying to hang on for dear life, knowing that
Mm-hmm.
it's already dying, and there's no chance of it coming back to life
No,
again.
that's
And
right.
that's why we're seeing all this craziness out in the open. And it will probably get worse in the next year, 2, 3 years even. But I think the message is to everybody listening is that as long as we stay connected to our hearts
Mm-hmm.
and don't buy into the fear porn that's propagated, which, if you watch the news, stop it.
Yes.
If you if you use news feeds on your phone and scroll through it, stop that at once,
Mm-hmm.
because that will keep you in that low vibrational space and keep you disconnected from your infinite awareness.
And the more that, I mean, when you think about it, yes, this thing is dying, it's thrashing, it's like it's giving all it has in these last throes, right? Because once we really understand and comprehend our unlimited, eternal, supernatural, metaphysical being, any state of matter you're experiencing can disappear in a second. It really can. Just the way that I walk into a wall,
Yeah.
right? When we comprehend that there is no limit to what we can do, we have to remove the programs, the brainwashing that has been placed in there to remove your what they would call magical belief systems. When you're a child, you have magical belief systems because you know you're that unlimited being. It's natural to you. So it's almost like a return to that. And in that state, we may be watching and witnessing the entire realm dismantle through extreme measure. But you may just find that you're going to walk peacefully through a portal right out.
Yeah.
You may just surprise yourself with your metaphysical supernatural ability, and it may be just seamless for some,
Yeah.
because there are no limits, and really there are no physics.
That's so true, because going back to the desperate attempts of this global control network is one of the reasons that we see so much stuff going on in the world, is to keep us distracted.
Yeah.
Look over there in Ukraine, look over there with Trump, look over there with
Yeah.
what's going on in China. Look, just so people are constantly like never stopping for long enough to reconnect with this, which is always there.
Yeah.
Because people always do, like when people go on holiday or vacation and they sit on a beach without a phone, after like an hour or two, and then like they start connecting with each other, and this is the
Yeah.
one thing we've got to remember is that these people are terrified of us. They will make out that they're all powerful, but they actually are absolutely terrified of us being present for long enough to begin to reconnect with the infinite power that we're made of, that's always there, and that we're interconnected. And as you've already said, Lauda, all these incredible apparently supernatural powers that we all possess, that are actually just an inherent part of what it means to be having an experience, even in a human form.
Exactly. And what we can do, we don't need to create technology. We
Yeah.
can just do it. Now they are cut
Yeah.
off from prime creator. They're cut off from source. So they have to create a dirty technology to try and mimic in some ways what we could just naturally do and overdo. Like
Yeah.
we're not bound to any of this. And that reality when people start truly understanding what and who they are, that reality implodes. Because
Yeah.
we're not bound to it. We're not bound to anything.
Yeah. And it couldn't be further away from who and what we truly are as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're just about out of time. Oh, this has been such a wonderful conversation. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd love to share with the audience before we think about wrapping up?
Just, yeah, I would probably say that everyone is living a stolen life, right? Your life has been stolen. You're living an imposter life that is based on you forgetting who you are, right? And it's based on you not remembering and not knowing your unlimited, celestial, supernatural, metaphysical being. Retain that knowledge more and forget the programs, forget the brainwashing, forget what you are told is real. Trust yourself and your spirit. Trust that, because the more that you trust that, the more that you're going to be activated in what and who you really are.
Yeah, I love that. I really feel that because that is the truth of our reality,
Yeah.
our true reality, and who and what we are. So, yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. It's really beautiful. So, finally, I always end the conversations with 3 quick fire questions. So, the first one is, what are you most excited about right now?
In reality, I'm
Anything? Yeah.
well, I'm always most excited about animals.
Oh,
Because animals to me are a very pure remembrance of what is real, and they've come in to actually help us remember.
mm,
But I'm most excited about us like finally getting this done. I'm most excited about, you know, moving on and getting out of here and watching this be dismantled. And yeah, it's going to be a show. It's going to be a big show because you're going to be witnessing things that you thought were never possible.
yeah, it most definitely is. Okay. Secondly, I want you to imagine that you've just jumped into a time machine where you kind of have many times, but and you feel yourself going through the space time continuum. The doors open.
Mhm.
There's 12-year-old you stood in front of you. What 2 pieces of advice would you give that young girl?
I probably would. It would probably be a story of love. That everything we do ultimately is for the sake of true love, of returning to creation being love. It's not about the stories you live. It's not about, the narratives. It's about love. And everything we do in creation is because of love.
Wonderful. And finally, what would you say the biggest thing wrong with the world is right now? And what one thing would you do to solve it?
I would say the biggest thing that I can see that is wrong with the world is technology.
Mm,
Yeah, it is the current technology that is interfacing with our bodies and using our bodies as technology. It's pure invasion, and it is hacking the DNA. It's a form of taking you over. Um, you remove this kind of technology, then by nature, right, celestials will bring out the true essence of creation more. This technology is by design there to stop that.
yeah,
So if I were to remove one thing, yeah, it would be technology.
yeah. Because it's one thing I've only really, probably in the last year or so, really begun to not just know as a good idea, but actually feel here
Hmm.
is something that you've shared earlier in the conversation is that anything tech can do, we can do many, many, many times over.
Yeah.
if we connect back to that info. But I mean,
Right.
you've proven it yourself from that experience as a small child of
Yeah.
literally walking through a wall, which to anyone else would seem impossible.
Well, yeah,
Um,
and I mean, if you think about the technology, right, that brings, you have to look at education systems, medical system, all of that is combined and being utilized as a weapon against us, okay, to do
yeah,
that, hack us, right, into oblivion. So get rid of it all.
mm,
If I could, I would.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
having light, electricity is good, okay? That I have no issue with, when they discovered light again in the 1800s. I think that's wonderful. But the progression of what we are in is by design an agenda that has been in the works from the beginning.
mm,
And it isn't to make your life more comfortable. It's to devolve you
yeah,
and to like trap you for good. So
yeah.
that's why I think it's highly dangerous.
Yeah, that's a great response to that. There's something that nobody else has said so far. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. So this has been wonderful. I mean, I will put this in the show notes anyway, Lauda. But where can people find you? Where can people find your work and connect with you?
So my YouTube, my Rumble, my Odyssey, all of that is always Sovereign Key, KI. Everything's Sovereign Key, and my
Yeah.
website is sovereignkey.com. So it's all the same.
Brilliant. Yeah. I'll
Hmm.
put all those links
Yeah.
in the show notes. For everybody watching who is still tuned in, thanks ever so much. As always, please do like, comment, and particularly subscribe if you enjoyed this conversation to get so the algorithm will get this to more amazing people like you who will enjoy the conversation. And thank you as always for tuning in. And Lauda, thank you so much for joining me on Superliminal. It's been a wonderful conversation. You've shared some really incredible perspectives that I know is going to be hugely valuable to everybody watching. So thank you. And it's been an honor to have you in the hot
Thank
seat.
you, Franco, and everyone. Truly, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, much love and bye for now.